I'm a massive Toby Fox fan. I mean, look, I got a Sans plush toy, a Papyrus plush toy, and the Undertale tarot card deck, and this poster, and these shirts, and this random printed picture of Rousey smoking a fat blunt. I think it's safe to say that I adore Undertale and Deltarune, and while there are some aspects of them which are questionable, they shine as funny, somewhat challenging, and surprisingly deep games. Both of these games heavily promote the idea of taking a pacifistic approach to enemy encounters, and strongly encourage the player to spare monsters instead of killing them. In Undertale, this goes further to actually provide endearing secrets for people who tried their best to befriend every monster, in the form of the yellow names in the true ending credits, which only appear if you deliberately use certain methods of acting to spare every monster. Of course, that means that the game also has to have a unique outcome if you do the exact opposite. Not only to kill every encountered enemy, but go out of your way to kill every possible monster. Now, Deltarune Chapter 1 does not have an alternate route, since that game plays into the theme that your choices do not matter, and forces you onto a fairly linear path to the end. But Chapter 2 does have a pseudo-genocide route, dubbed by the community as the Snowgrave route. This follows Undertale's basic genocide formula of find monster, kill monster, repeat until no more monster, proceed. But there are quite a few deviations which make both of the routes shine as their own separate parts of their individual games. So let's talk about that. I will be talking about how Deltarune Chapter 2's Snowgrave route differs from Undertale's Genocide route, and how they both work to convey the same themes of sin and guilt in different ways. Undertale shows you that your actions have consequences in what seems to be an inconsequential game, shining light on the player's horrific actions. Deltarune Chapter 2 utilizes what I like to call secondhand sin, by making you feel guilty for your actions through your treatment of a character named Noelle. Quick disclaimer. A lot of the stuff I say in this video is probably speculation and my interpretations of the themes of Toby Fox's brainchildren. Of course, there may be stuff I miss, or you guys might have your own thoughts on this topic, so please let me know in the comments. Oh, and be sure to like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Undertale's Genocide route is genuinely brilliant. Since the game was designed as a subversion of RPG tropes, of course Toby Fox had to add some commentary about one of the most common mechanics in these types of games: grinding for experience. Almost every basic RPG has this mechanic. Pokemon, Final Fantasy, Amori, I don't know very many RPGs, but they all have some sort of XP grinding mechanic. Undertale takes this basic foundation of the game genre and slaps you across the face with it by pointing out how cruel your actions would appear to be in the game's universe. Because at the heart of it all, you're just murdering a population of innocent monsters for those sweet execution points. In a way, the Genocide route makes you feel like the final boss of the game, and every monster fighting against you is merely standing in your way to slow your inevitable advance. It's what makes fights like Papyrus's and Undyne the Undying so emotional. Papyrus believes that you can change, opting to spare you to help bring you onto the path of redemption. And Undyne is, well, Undyne. She's the true hero, a serious obstacle in your way, trying to defeat you for the good of the whole world. Both of these examples help to make the player feel more guilty for their actions, be it Papyrus still believing you after literally being beheaded, or Undyne's steadfast belief that you will inevitably be defeated. I've never seen anyone stumble upon Undertale's Genocide route accidentally. I believe this is in most part due to the game's advertising, which, as I've stated before, heavily promoted a pacifistic style of play. This was probably very deliberate. It would mean that the only people who discover the Genocide route intentionally chose to do the wrong thing. That's what makes Flowey such an interesting character. His mindset is reflective of a completionist gamer, who does whatever they want in a game because they feel that it has no consequence whatsoever, and tries to do everything possible just to see what would happen. The core theme that Undertale tries to present is that your actions have consequences. This is why characters like Flowey and Sans acknowledge your reloading of save files to prove that reverting your wrongful actions never goes unnoticed. The Genocide route really plays into the negative aspect of this, and how once you've gone down the wrong path, you're not going to abort it anytime soon. Because really, who tried to spare Toriel after clearing the ruins? Guilt and sin are strong motives in this route, since, well, basically everything about this route reminds you about the awful nature of your actions. Be it the absence of frog NPCs in the ruins, the eerie silence of the echo flowers and waterfall, or the complete emptiness of the evacuated hotlands. I'm sure you didn't think about the impacts of your actions while you methodically killed monsters in Snowdin Forest, but then you stumbled on that note from the bunny shopkeeper begging you not to hurt her family, and you just go, oh god, am I really committing to this? But of course you continue, because you've made it this far already. Sunk cost fallacy plays heavily into the Genocide route, and it's utilized well to keep you pushing on. Ever gotten annoyed about how each region of the game has an increasing number of required monsters to kill? Well, my theory is that this was done to keep the player invested in the route. Even if you really wanted to abort, you would think, damn, I've already spent so much time killing monsters, I don't want my time to have been wasted. So you proceed. The meta aspect of the game also assists with the messaging. For example, Sans knows that he can't permanently kill Frisk, since you can just reload a file and try again. So he deliberately makes his fight devilishly difficult with the intention of making you rage quit and stop playing the game. He's so desperate to put a stop to your murderous rampage that he's willing to exploit his knowledge of the fourth wall to defeat you, dodging your attacks, sending bones in the menu, and stalling his own turn so you don't get yours. And of course, there's that scene with Chara at the end, but we'll get to that later. The Sans fight really is the culmination of the Genocide route's harshness. Of course, there's the fact of Sans being by far the most difficult boss in the game, effectively punishing you for your past crimes with some very difficult bullet patterns. But the flavor text also adds to this, with the phrase, "You feel your sins crawling on your back," becoming iconic. There's also the unique poison effect his attacks give you, which is called karmic retribution, further pushing the message that what you've done is literally eating away at your soul. And after tens of attempts, you finally made it halfway, and Sans decides to spare you, claiming he still sees some good in you. Of course, he dunks on you if you accept his offer, cementing the fact that you're trapped in this situation, strapped with all that guilt and sin, and fighting the one enemy who actively punishes you for your genocide. There's a minor flaw in the Genocide route's messaging, however, and that is the characterization of Chara, the first human. There are points in the Genocide route where it seems like the player character performs actions by themselves, such as walking and attacking without inputs. This has led many to believe that Chara, who becomes more powerful and present as the player increases their love, gains partial control over Frisk and is able to influence them. It makes perfect sense, given evidence like the increased presence of the red flavor text near the end of the game. What I have a problem with, however, is people using Chara as a scapegoat for their actions, basically saying, I didn't kill all those monsters, Chara did. This of course puts a massive damper on the overall message of the route, being that the player is responsible for all of the events of the game, and that they should be held accountable for their sins. Yes, okay, Chara takes control of Frisk at certain points in the game, like threatening Monster Kid and attacking twice in one turn to kill Sans. But these instances are few and far between, leaving most of the Genocide route under the player's control. Sure, Chara does goad you to continue your merciless killing spree with the save point kill counters, but they're not outright forcing you to kill monsters. You could abort the run at any time by sparing the boss at the end of the region, but of course you don't. You want to fight the funny skeleton, right? Undertale's Genocide route is excellent, and conveys the strong theme of how every action you take has a severe consequence. But a common interpretation of the storyline can basically ruin the messaging. Deltarune Chapter 2, however, takes a different approach to conveying moral responsibility to the player. First off, no, I am not saying that Deltarune is better than Undertale, nor am I saying that their corresponding merciless routes are overall better than one another. They are both equal in my eyes, though they pull ahead of each other in certain aspects. In some ways, Deltarune's version of the Genocide route is somewhat similar to Undertale's. You still have to kill all the monsters in different regions, and there are some changes in the story which only occur based on this route that you took, such as spooky ambience and creepy scenes. But Deltarune takes a different approach at making the player feel bad about their actions. One word: Noelle. Usually, depleting all of a monster's HP only makes them flee, granting the party with no experience. However, this wholesome snowflake can actually kill Dark World monsters by freezing them solid with a spell named Ice Shock. Though this doesn't reward the party with XP, it still counts as an enemy kill. Actually, this makes the Snowgrave route way worse than Undertale's Genocide, since you don't get any exclusive rewards for doing this route. At least in Undertale, you could increase your max HP by gaining love, but in this game, all you get for killing enemies is these ugly ice sculptures. That means the only reason why you would do this route on purpose would be because you did the Genocide route in Undertale and wanted to see if you could do it in this game, you monster. The main aspect of the Snowgrave route, which makes it different to Undertale's Genocide, is the fact that you yourself are not killing or even attacking the enemy, you're simply commanding your friend Noelle to. In this way, the game tries to make you feel like you aren't responsible for your sins. Rather, you're forcing Noelle to bear the weight of the crimes you forced her to commit. And we can see how fearful and guilt-ridden she becomes as the route progresses. Noelle tries to justify her actions by telling herself that killing enemies is making her stronger, which for the most part is true. But as she grows stronger, she becomes numb to the violence, barely registering battles until Chris begins issuing commands. I call this phenomenon secondhand sin, derived from the phrase secondhand embarrassment, which basically means getting embarrassed by observing the embarrassing actions of others. Secondhand sin in this context is the player feeling sinful by witnessing Noelle kill the innocent creatures of the cyberworld, which is a very interesting method of forcing the player to feel guilt for their actions. It's a very interesting dynamic of Chris, the stoic, straight-faced protagonist, commanding Noelle to commit all of these atrocities on the player's behalf. Over time, Noelle is effectively brainwashed into thinking that her killing of the various monsters in the cyberworld is her only chance of survival, transforming her into a mindless killing machine. And it's genuinely sad to see Noelle telling herself that killing the monsters is the right thing to do, and that listening to Chris's every command is the only way to escape. Her psyche slowly breaks down, transforming her from a timid, shy girl to a slave under Chris's control, who is becoming stronger, yet ironically is unable to break free from Chris. If Chara and Flowey are inserts for the player's cruelty and morbid curiosity, Noelle is an insert for the player's guilt and self-justification. You can tell that she is initially incredibly uncomfortable with what Chris is commanding her to do, but as the route progresses, she slowly becomes accustomed to hunting the helpless monsters and killing them. She justifies her own actions to herself by saying that the kills are making her stronger, and that she's so far into the path of violence that there's no turning back. Only after killing Birdley, her best friend, does she snap out of her stupor and realize how awful her actions had been, sullenly walking home. In the Snowgrave route, there's no Chara to scapegoat as the true culprit of the genocide, nor can you blame Chris either, as they are under your control for the whole cyberworld portion of the game. You told Noelle to do all those things, thrusting all of that guilt onto her because you don't want to kill those monsters yourself, right? Noelle will, so she has to bear the weight of your crimes on your behalf, because you told her to murder people. And because of that, Noelle is effectively traumatized from the deaths she's caused, and is fearful of the control Chris has over her. So instead of feeling guilt for having killed all of those innocent monsters, we feel guilt when we see how affected Noelle is due to her killing of those innocent monsters. Second-hand sin. This is furthered by the interactions between the player and Noelle, not Chris and Noelle, you. If Chris is downed in the Birdley fight, Noelle comments that, despite Chris being knocked out, she can still hear their voice, implying that she still feels the presence of the player controlling her actions. There's also the end of the Spamton Neo fight in this route. Chris calls for help from Susie and Rousey, but you whisper Noelle's name. You, the player, command Noelle in this final moment to help. This all plays into the idea that you are responsible for everything that goes down in this route. Not Chara, not Chris, not Newbert, however much you believe he assisted Spamton in his various war crimes. No, you are responsible for the Snowgrave route. I strongly recommend that you check out Daryl Talks Games' video about Deltarune Chapter 2, which goes into detail about the psychology of learned helplessness. According to the website Medical News Today, learned helplessness is a state that occurs after a person has experienced a stressful situation repeatedly. They come to believe that they are unable to control or change the situation, so they do not try, even when the opportunity for change becomes available. This really just sums up Noelle's mindset, especially during the Snowgrave route. Noelle initially has her doubts about killing the monsters of the cyberworld, but as the story goes on, Noelle slowly breaks down and begins to justify herself obeying Chris's twisted commands, eventually succumbing to the violence and misery, despite being able to bail out at any time. She eventually breaks free of Chris's control after killing Birdley, but by that point the damage has already been done, both to the cyberworld and her mental state. Deltarune Chapter 2's Snowgrave route still conveys the same themes of guilt and sin that Undertale's Genocide route does, but with the twist of secondhand sin, which forces you, the player, to feel guilty for commanding Noelle to commit the violent and sinful acts which you can't commit yourself. Both the Genocide route and Snowgrave route have one especially chilling scene, set in a dark place with some spooky ambience, and which tries to drive home the idea that what you've done is genuinely horrible, as well as being some sort of sick payoff for getting to the end. In Undertale, this scene is the encounter with Chara at the end of the Genocide route. They comment on how the increase in Frisk's level of violence has awakened them, and there is no longer a point to the game of Undertale since everything has been destroyed, so it's time to move on to another game. What Chara says here draws parallels with real-life completionist gamers. People who 100% games, get bored, and move on to another, deserting what they invested so much time into. Chara then kills and crashes the game, leaving nothing but a howling void. They then strike up a deal with you, the player, offering to restore the game to the very beginning in exchange for your soul. If the deal is accepted, Chara then resets the entire game. But of course, there's a slight twist. At the end of every true pacifist route, Chara will appear as Frisk, to remind the player that their past sins will never be forgotten, even after a supposed true reset. Of course, Deltarune takes a less meta approach to communicating to the player, instead allowing the characters to express the weight of the Snowgrave route. In Deltarune, this creepy scene is the real-world scene, which is triggered only if Susie and Chris go to see Noelle and her father Rudolph at the hospital. Noelle hurriedly leaves the room, and when Chris follows her, we are treated to some dialogue, where Noelle expresses her concern about how Chris had been acting so strange without anyone else noticing. Before the Snowgrave route, Noelle was a timid and polite girl, yet afterwards, it seems she has gotten much more nerve-wracked, especially in the presence of Chris. What she had gone through in the cyberworld had genuinely affected her mindset, especially regarding her relationship with Chris, and even influencing her interactions with other people. A major example of this is in the hospital, when she is playing a game with her father. He asks her if he can have a go, but she always refuses. On her normal route, she declines politely, indicating her character growth from the cyberworld, in which she learned to stand up for her own choices. But in the Snowgrave route, she fearfully refuses to let her father have a turn, indicating her new possessive nature and desire to have some level of control to compensate for her experience with Chris in the cyberworld. In short, Undertale's Genocide route makes people feel, oh god, this game really knows me and is punishing me for my sins. And Deltarune's Snowgrave route makes people feel, oh god, I'm making my friend Noelle lose her mind. In conclusion, both Undertale's Genocide and Deltarune's Snowgrave routes really showcase Toby Fox's amazing writing skills. Undertale's Genocide route pushes the idea that you are responsible for everything you do to this happy population of monsters, and that killing them with no mercy has drastic consequences in the game's universe, and it won't ever let you forget that. Deltarune's Snowgrave route has the kills be indirectly caused by you, but carried out by your friend Noelle. This creates a whole new different dynamic, where you feel guilt for watching Noelle experience the misery and pain of committing mass murder. Overall, both of these games are really cool, and both of their merciless routes are of equal standards of quality, though different in how they affect the player. It's miraculous how these two games, though made by the same person, and reusing the same art style, general mechanics, and many characters, managed to be so different in how they express their theming. So yes, that's the end of the video. Thanks to all the people who watched to the end of the video, I appreciate it a lot. It would also be really cool if you like and subscribe and all that stuff. I have a Discord server as well, so feel free to join and chill with us there. Alright, now that's the end of the video. See you next time.